This is a pre-recording on how to complete assignment 1. The assignment is based on the case study given about Uber Bakkie. Uber, an American brand, chose to launch Uber Bakkie in South Africa. This could be a very good idea as South Africans are accustomed to their bakkies. The starting point for any assignment is that the prescribed work is covered. Ensure that you have a good understanding of the prescribed work. Then you need to read the case study and the corresponding text. Now you will know what to research further. Question 1.1. Based on additional research, conduct an analysis of the market environment of Uber, and that is for 15 marks. You will see in the instruction that it requires further additional research. A market analysis forms part of a situational analysis, and that means I need to look for current information pertaining to my market environment that is going to have an influence on my business, and in this case, Uber. On the bottom of the slide, you can see I gave you a screenshot of a clip to remind you of the business environment. The business environment consists out of the micro, market, and macro environment. You can find this clip in the relevant unit under lecture resources. The market environment is the closest to the business. The business cannot control it, but what happens in the market environment does have an influence on the business, and in this case again, Uber. On page 97, you'll find the elements or the composition of the market environment, and this will become the starting point for you to understand the work and then guide you on what you need to research. The rule of thumb is that a third of the marks are allocated to theory and 2/3 of the marks are allocated to application. It is very important that everything is applied to Uber. The article mentions that South Africa loves their bakkie, states Senior Operations Manager for Uber Middle East and Africa. Discuss the different levels of management at Uber and outline what each level of management would be responsible for. So the starting point for this question is the theory in the textbook on page 47 to 48. You need to identify and discuss each level. Again, all the theory needs to be applied to Uber. You would have to then explain what each level of management at Uber would be responsible for. The rule of thumb is a third theory and 2/3 application. The question is out of 15 marks, therefore 5 marks for each level. Question 1.3. The article mentions that the introduction of courier bakkies represent a significant milestone for Uber, making South Africa its first global market to offer users the option to request the delivery of heavy items. Distinguish between planned, reactive, and revolutionary change and determine whether the introduction of the courier bakkie can be termed as planned, reactive, or revolutionary change. Justify your answer for 15 marks. You can find the prescribed theory on page 128. You need to describe what planned change is, what reactive change is, and what revolutionary change is. Your description needs to be applied to Uber. Planned change is proactive planning to change based on changes that you anticipate in the external environment. For example, planning to grow is being proactive. Reactive is when an organization changes because there was a change in the environment and they then respond to this change. Revolutionary change involves major radical change as opposed to incremental change where you change little by little. You need to state which type of change was applicable to Uber when launching the Uber bakkie. You have to justify your answer by providing evidence of that particular change. Question 1.4. Discuss internal forces of change at Uber and provide suitable examples for 15 marks. You will find the prescribed theory on page 125. The reason why organizations change differ from organization to organization. The forces of change are either internal or external, so either from within the organization or from the outside of the organization. So for this question, you are going to identify at least 5 of the internal forces for change, and you are going to apply it to Uber. Question 1.5. Discuss Hertzberg's two-factor motivation theory and provide examples applicable to drivers at Uber of motivators and hygiene factors for 20 marks. Your textbook reference for this question is from page 600 to 602. You can also look at the clip at the bottom again of the slide that I've posted on ARC under content, under the lecture resources, to just give you a refresher of this theory. This is a motivation theory. Remember, motivation is what drives people to act. When you know what motivates people, for example, your employees, you can use this to motivate them to act. In this question, you need to distinguish between the hygiene factors, which relate to job context, and motivators, which refer to job content. You can also refer to figure 20.3 that will give you guidance on what to research and then apply specifically to Uber. And again, we're looking at 3rd mark for theory, 2/3 for application. Question 2. This is an essay question where you need to refer to the rubric for guidance on what to include. So within the context of Uber, write an essay of 800 to 900 words in which you analyze the importance of agile leadership at Uber and determine, based on additional research, whether or not there is evidence of agile leadership at Uber. This is for 20 marks. Paraphrasing and referencing are to be included in your, of course, your referencing, your in-text referencing, and then the references will be in the overall reference list for this, the assessment. Note, you will receive more marks for your own original detailed examples or application than for examples from your textbook or from your lecturer or from ARC. Marks will be allocated to according to the rubric, and here is the screenshot for the rubric. So agile leadership is a flexible and collaborative leadership approach that empowers teams, focuses on customer needs, adapts to change quickly, and encourages continuous improvement to achieve the business goals. You need to give a theoretical description of agile leadership. You can find this on page 582, but remember, additional research is also required. You then need to find evidence of whether they have or have not used agile leadership. Everything needs to be applied to Uber. Remember the structure of an essay. Marks will be allocated to this. Here is just a visual representation of what your assignments should look like. Firstly, there should be a cover page and a content page with the corresponding page numbers. All the headings that you find in your text should be present in the content page. The content itself, your assignment will always have an introduction for the entire assignment and a conclusion for the entire assignment. Then you will turn each question into a heading. So for instance, question 1.1, you won't write question 1.1, you will write, or you'll create a heading. So you turn that question into a statement. And for example, you can create a heading like you see in front of you, market environment. And you would do that for every single question. When you get to the essay question, you can number that 2. The heading that I've created there is essay agile leadership. And then for the essay itself, you'll do exactly the same thing. There'll be an introduction and a conclusion to the essay. You'll create headings for each paragraph that, or each thought that you create. So for instance, your first heading could be agile leadership defined. And then you create headings as you discuss the different areas in the question. Then, as I said, there'd be a conclusion And then there at the bottom, it would be a conclusion for the entire assessment. You'll also note that the text is aligned on the right-hand side and the spacing is 1.5 to make sure that it's easily readable. Some final points. Remember, the essay is due before 23:59, meaning if it is late, 1 minute late, it's minus 15%. It's an individual assessment. It needs to be submitted on ARC through Turnitin. Proofread the assessment before handing it in, and refer to the referencing guide and the policy on AI.